time to do some more typography experiments. So the experiment that we're going to be doing today is I have all these pieces of paper with some different typography and stuff on it. This is just for a placeholder for a picture. So I'll just be taking these and I'm going to just hold them above my scanner. I'm going to drop them, and wherever they land, I'm going to scan it in, and that's going to be what I'm working off of. And I want to do my best to not deviate from the scans at all. So basically, how it scans in is how I want to end up using it. So for instance, if I drop the piece of paper and half of it's being cut off, that's how I'm going to use it. I'm going to try not to move things around too much. I want the randomness of dropping the piece of paper onto the scanner and scanning it to kind of influence the design. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, so we're going to start off with these two designs first. I'll put them up here so you can actually see them. I have my second camera angle here. Hello. That way you can see how they land, because from that camera angle, you can't really see anything. So I figured this camera angle will help you see how they land so you can kind of get an idea of how everything's going. So we're going to start off with this one first, and we'll see how it goes. A little bit too straight. We want it to be chaotic, right? All right, there we go. Now that's a lot more interesting. Let's go with that. I can work with that. Okay, that's going to be a little bit different. You know what? Even though it is kind of like just kind of straight on, we'll go with it. Let's try from like up here. I don't know. It's just so centered. It's like almost too nice. I don't know. Let's do it. Okay, or it can just go right off. Do I want to use this even though it's like half on, half off? Yeah. Okay. We'll see what happens. That's more like it. I think I can work with this. So the next two right here, which I'll put up here so you can actually see them, they're just some text. Just kind of grabbed it, a quote that I thought might kind of go along with the other kind of title. So just some extra little something to add in. Maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't. I just would rather have it than not have it. So keep going. Alrighty, that actually might cut some of it off, but who cares? Well, more vertical, so let's try that. Alrighty, something we haven't tried. Maybe I'll try like spinning it, so maybe like that. That's something. I don't know. We'll just scan another one, who cares? Screw it, we're gonna go with it. Alright, I like it. We'll actually be able to read it, although I haven't tried spinning it. And that just goes right off. So that's not going to work. That landed very elegantly. Kind of in the same place, but it's different. So we'll go with it. We have not done that before, so let's go with it. Now we'll move on to the placeholder for the picture. Now this is probably going to be the one that changes the most. I just kind of added a square just so I could kind of try to make it as random as possible. But I wouldn't be surprised if I end up changing this to like a rectangle or making it really narrow. It's just a placeholder. I don't really know what's going to go here, if anything. So it's just another resource that I can use to try to come up with a cool design. That should be interesting. I almost want to move it and make it more parallel, but it's all about the chaos for this one. So I'm just going to leave it, give it a spin. Okay, we don't have one in the center of the page, so let's do that. Alrighty, so that is it for all of the resources that I had planned. Other than that, this is pretty much it, so we can just jump into Photoshop and start editing. Alright, so the first thing I did was remove all of the backgrounds from the pictures, so that way I could have as much flexibility with the type as I needed. I also changed the squares from an image to a shape, so that way I could more easily change it and move around if I wanted to. From there, I just started going through the layers, turning them on and off until I found something that I thought was interesting or cool. Really, I was just trying to find an interesting layout that I could use and build off of. Like I said earlier, I was trying not to deviate from what I scanned in. I kind of wanted it to be exactly how I scanned it in, so that way as much of it was as random and chaotic as possible. About one of the only things that I really changed was this one image that I extended slightly. But after I came up with one layout, I kind of wanted to come up with another one just to try things out, and then I ended up coming up with 3. So really this is just me kind of doing the same process of just turning on and off layers, just trying to find something that looks interesting and that I think I could build off of. Really, I was trying not to think things through too much. I was just trying to go off my gut feeling. Whenever I saw something that I thought was cool or interesting, I just went with it. And I can definitely say for sure, if I wasn't doing this experiment, I would never come up with these layouts by my own. And I think that's what made this experiment so much fun. There wasn't really a whole lot of thinking. It was just, what do I think looks cool in the moment? Or what's the resources that I'm given? You know, having those limitations kind of made me think in a different way that I normally wouldn't. But once I had my 3 layouts, I can move on to adding in the pictures and any kind of textures or anything like that. So I had a couple different images that I thought about using. So I just started kind of experimenting with those and seeing what fit and seeing what I liked. I really like doing this orange, black, and white gradient. I use this a lot. And so I was just trying to see if I could make that work if I could. If not, then I would move on. But luckily I was able to make it work. And I think the end result is pretty cool. And the other photograph in the bottom of the image, I ended up changing it a couple different times just because I wasn't quite happy with where it was at. I like the image here with the person kind of screaming and yelling, and you have all these different fading effects of it. But because it didn't really have a border, just something didn't really feel quite right, and it just kind of felt like it was floating in space and not really tied to anything. So that's when I ended up switching to this clock image, which I think works a lot better because it does have white bits that kind of bleed out into the rest of the page, but it also has a border so you can kind of tell where the edges of the frame are. So once I had the images selected, I just started applying them to the other layouts that I had. Since it's all kind of the same idea, I figured having different photos isn't really going to change anything that much. So I figured these would more just be iterations on the same idea rather than, 3 completely different ideas. But really a lot of the time that I spent on this was just kind of getting the effects to look just right. I wanted to make sure they had the right contrast, the right colors, the right textures, and so I just spent a lot of time balancing those out. But after that, the last thing to add was just some textures just to kind of bring everything together and make it a little bit more chaotic and grungy. That way it doesn't feel so clean and sterile. But once all of those textures were applied, that was pretty much it. So here are the final results. I can definitely say that I would never make something like this without doing these kind of experiments. I usually like to work in a pretty methodical way, so doing something that's so chaotic and unpredictable is not really something I would typically do. But I think partially that's what makes this series so much fun. I get to try out doing things that I would never try before, and in doing so, I get to create things that I would never create otherwise. It's hard to pick a favorite out of these 3 because they each have a little bit of something that I like, but if I had to choose, I think I would say the 3rd is my favorite, then the 2nd, and then the 1st. But I'd love to know what you guys thought. What was your favorite? I also know that this episode was a little bit different than usual because I like to have a couple different experiments that I try out that kind of fit under a subject. But this time I just kind of chose one experiment and I was just kind of doing it all the way through. I might want to continue doing this in the future just so I can make this series run a little bit longer and I don't have to worry about coming up with a bunch of different ideas for one given subject. I can just say, hey, I want to test out this idea and that's what I'm going to do rather than, oh, well, I want to try out something with water, but I can only come up with 1 or 2 ideas. So that way I can do things a little bit more often and I don't have to worry about running out of ideas as quickly as I would otherwise. So let me know what you think about this format change, if it's good, if it's bad, or it doesn't even really matter. Also, I decided that I wanted to start sharing the experiments with you guys so you can make your own designs with the stuff that I'm coming up with. So I'll leave a link in the description that you can check out. You can download all the files and you can come up with your own design. What I want to do is have everybody submit their own work. That way we can make a video kind of showcasing what everybody else is making and we can see how everybody kind of does things a little bit differently. I always think it's really cool to see how other people work and think compared to how I do things. So I think it'd be fun just to kind of let you guys have some of these experiments so you don't have to do them yourself or, you can do them yourself and also submit. I just think it'd be fun to kind of get together, create, and see what everyone else is doing and hopefully inspire each other. So check out that link in the description and then either send these to me through email or Instagram. Also, whenever you submit, make sure you let me know what your Instagram handle is. That way I can give you a shout out and if anybody wants to follow you from seeing your work on the video, they can do so. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you would check out the rest of my channel and then consider subscribing. I hope to see you in the next video.